Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Influencer Confidential. I am so excited for today's guest. I'm going to give you guys the backstory in a bit of how I met this amazing creator, Elicia Goguen with the Glow Up Secrets. Elicia, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay!
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited. I'm going to let you do your intro, but before you do your intro, I want to let the Sidewalker community know about our really cool story because I think we have one. So Elicia is going to obviously let you guys know about her brand and what she's built. And obviously if she's on Influencer Confidential, she has the seal of approval over here. But it's funny how we met, because when I say met, obviously virtually, but how we met was a really serendipitous moment. I was scrolling on TikTok, like literally just kind of, mindless browsing and like binging her channel on TikTok. Like, I don't know, I saw her through the For You page, and then I would like just every now and then land on her stuff and go through her page. I just like loved her content. Then like 10 minutes later on Instagram, I get like a story, like on my notification being like, from her being like, oh my God, if you guys don't know this creator, like on YouTube, you need to check her out, talking about me. So I'm like, wait, like I felt like an old grandma. I was like, can she see me like watching her stories? I felt like this like old grandma person. But what ended up happening is like in this universe, we were both scrolling and watching each other's content at the same time. And if she did not post that story that she was watching me, I immediately hit her up, like in that moment, being like, oh my God, I was just watching you, which is crazy, right?
Yes. Like I actually cannot believe that happened.
And imagine how many people it happens with, but because you tagged me in that moment, like I always tell people in my community, which is mostly creators, you do not know who is watching you. Like you never know who's watching your content,
Yeah, very true. And I think about that too with just posting in general, or even when I'm like sharing something online on my Instagram stories with somebody I'm watching that's really helpful, I try and be mindful of just tagging that person as well, because like that person can help them in some way, or you never know, like maybe you can create a new like connection. You never know. So I think that's just amazing.
I love that. Never, like literally you never know who's watching you. So it's so important to like let other creators that you do watch, like, hey, I'm watching your stuff, because they may be watching your stuff too. In which case, this is how this whole conversation led to be. So Elicia, can you, I wanted to intro how we met, but can you intro yourself a little bit to the Sidewalker community, a little bit about Glow Up Secrets?
Yes. So my name is Elicia Goguen, but I do go by the Glow Up Secrets on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, like all my social media platforms. I would say I started on TikTok, basically just giving women a lot of advice and just tips that have helped me on my journey into womanhood, my journey into glowing up into the best version of myself. That's kind of where the Glow Up Secrets comes from. I'm giving advice and tips to other women to glow into the best version of themselves, not just to become like me, things of that nature. So I would call myself an influencer, a good influence, or a content creator, or whatever you have. But I talk to a lot of women about feminine energy, soft life, healing yourself, a lot of inner child healing. I talk about a lot of things, to be honest.
So good.
I think like the internal glow up happens. Sorry, the glow up is internal, but it's also external as well. So I really touch on a lot of internal things that can help us love ourselves and have more confidence as women. And obviously I share things that have helped me in my journey. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm on TikTok. And right now I'm moving on to YouTube as well, just expanding my my social media presence, I guess. I have a podcast, all that kind of stuff, talking about all that. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. And I think it's interesting because I see you from like I guess the brand perspective, but also just like looking at your content, like you are niche in your space, and everything you do reflects back to your like wellness, feminine energy, like womanhood tips. Like it all comes back to it. Even when you talk about like food or meal prep or like meal planning or whatever you're eating, it's not like, hey guys, I'm eating this because like choo. It's always brought back into this is an example of like, it all ties into your mission, which is a really great thing, by the way, from looking at it from like just my perspective. Like you have a very clear identity online, and I'm sure there's tons of other things about you, but you have a really great way of tying it always back to your focus and to your center, which I think is really well done. Now, one thing I think I told you like the first time we chatted on your podcast, I don't remember, but one of the things, like if I had to give you one word, like if I had to label you and say one word that I think, you know, describes Elicia, it would be magnetic. And I think that's because like your videos are quite simple, in the sense that like they're literally, I feel like done in your living room or something.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't stop watching. So from like a production value, it ain't that high. Like, I mean, maybe your beautiful apartment, the rent that you pay, but like you're magnetic, like people can just watch your stuff and just, I don't know. And I think that this is, so many people downplay, oh, like get on TikTok or get on whatever, talk to the camera. You don't need a lot. But I'm like, yeah, but there's a skill set. There's a skill set in being able to draw in your audience outside of fancy hooks and edits and special effects. So I know you probably can't share, because how do you share who you are? I know those things are hard to like share, but in terms of this magnetic appeal, is this something that you're aware of? Is this something that you practice? Is this something that you can kind of show others? I mean, never again to imitate, but like, how do you do it? How do you act so normal and human and I don't know, magnetic?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a few things. For one, I think at the beginning when I went on TikTok and started talking about anything that I was interested in, I definitely wasn't as confident. It took time for sure to translate who I am right now in real life to like on a social media platform. Like how I am on social media, that is me. And if I give advice to like one of my best friends, I'm coming with that same energy, but sometimes it's hard to do that over like video when you're not even really talking to anyone and you're just thinking about the camera being on you, right? So I think that definitely took a lot of time, but I think part of it is just I'm speaking about things that really light me up as well, like things that I really like, I stand for, I fully believe. So I feel like it would be probably harder to be very persuading or like magnetizing when you're talking about something that maybe doesn't light you up that as much. And honestly, like I've talked about things on TikTok that maybe I'm not that interested in, or people are asking me to talk about this thing and I'm like, okay, well, I should listen to my community and talk about this thing, and I have, and it's not really lit me up, and I'm like, you know what, it's not vibing, it's not clearly aligned for me, so I'm just not going to talk about that thing. So I've kind of realized that I think that the easiest thing you can do is to talk about things that are really important to you and that you think are really helpful. And I do think that takes time though. Like it took me a lot of time to, if you go back to my old videos, I don't necessarily look the exact same in terms of how I'm speaking. So a lot of practice.
Yeah. So confidence comes with practice. It comes with consistency. It comes with topics that are, like you say, light you up, right? So it's not just as easy as 1, 2, 3. There's all these intangibles that kind of go into it. So and it's funny because I'm sure people ask you all the time, how did you grow? How did you get so many followers? How did you grow so fast? And I'm sure they want to hear this secret recipe that all you do is post at 10 a.m. and then 4, and then it happens. And it clearly is not that, right? It's this being consistent, tuning into, or being very clear with what it is that you want to talk about. And that's how your confidence grows, and your confidence seeps into your content, and therefore people are drawn to you and hit follow.
Yes. It's funny actually. When I started growing on TikTok in like around October 20, well, we're in 2022, right? Geez, I'm so confused. I think
so. I don't know.
I actually don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in October 2021, when I started posting on TikTok, I was trying to figure out what things, like I have a lot of knowledge in a lot of different topics, especially health and wellness, things like that. But I knew that wasn't really, I didn't really want to talk about that. I wanted to talk more about mindset stuff and like the real internal glow up and all the healing practices and things that I was doing in that moment of time. But I was still showing up as talking about things that I was supposed to talk about because I knew about, right? And so I realized like I was talking about that kind of stuff. It was getting some traction, but I just felt like I was so not aligned. And I was actually becoming quite miserable having to post all the time because I was like, I want to grow my audience. I don't really know what I want to be talking about, but I'm just going to talk about these things because this is what I know. And one thing about posting and growing is I definitely was consistent. I was posting 3 times a day, every single day. And I was just trying out new,
For how long? I'm so sorry to interrupt, but like for how long?
Probably like maybe 3-4 months.
Okay.
I was posting every day, 3 times a day. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Until I started like really figuring out the topics that like resonated with me. And then now I don't have to post like that. But I do think that there was a moment in time around like, I don't know, somewhere near Christmas where I was just feeling not aligned with some of the things I was talking about. And I was stressing about it because I was like, I want to grow, I'm growing my audience, all this kind of stuff, like 3 videos a day, all this kind of stuff. And then I was like, one night I was like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to focus on stressing myself out about posting 3 times a day when there's things that I don't even want to be talking about, whatever. Just energetically, I was like, I'm done. And that night, there was one thing that was on my mind that I wanted to post about, and it was something about why you do self-sabotaging behaviors, because I was really into just like understanding so much about the psyche at that point. And I posted that video, and at that same moment, I was like, you know what, done. This is not what I was. I wasn't talking about something to do with like health and wellness, but I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna post it. And the next day, that video went viral. And from there is when I started to really like find out, okay, this is what feels good to me. I want to talk about healing practices and why we're doing these self-sabotaging behaviors, why we hate ourselves, all this kind of stuff. And that led me to where I'm at right now. So I think there's really something to say about like just focusing on what feels good to you and talk about that.
Yeah. And I actually I'm going to dive in there for a second. Mm-hmm. Do you think that you were talking to who you were 2 years ago, or are you talking about your healing journey like currently? So a lot of times you'll hear people say, talk to who you needed, before, like talk to who you were a year ago, talk to who you were 2 years ago, talk to that person, she needs you, right? Do you find that that's who you're kind of speaking to, like sharing? Because you mentioned I was on this healing journey, I'm learning about all this sort of stuff and I'm sharing it with my community. Would you say that you're kind of like a little bit more advanced, or are you sharing as you're learning, like, or both? Maybe.
Yeah, I would say maybe both. I would say there's some topics that I talk about that I'm giving advice to women who were me like 3 years ago, especially like on YouTube and stuff, because I do think that's so valuable. And there's just like people are always needing that advice. But the stuff that I was talking about when I was growing on TikTok, I mean, I had just learned that like just then, and I was doing these practices, and that's I think why I was able to grow, because like I was doing it right then and there.
Like it was very clear that you're not just talking about in the ethos, but you're practicing.
No, I was practicing it a lot. No. And I was like I was showing examples of how to talk to your inner child and do parts work and shadow work and stuff. And those videos went viral because people have never really like seen examples like that. And I was doing that in real time, like healing myself and putting that online, and it just like it resonated completely. So yeah, for sure, I would say I was like right in it as well.
That's awesome. So maybe this will take me to an area that I kind of wanted to dive into, was self-care. I know you talk a lot about self-care in general, but I want to put it to the ear of creators. So the people that listen to my content here at Sidewalker, whether it be on the YouTube, which this may be appearing on, or on the podcast, they're creators, they're influencers, they're learning. I think that's how you found us, right? YouTube. So I want to talk about self-care, but for creators. I want to talk about confidence, but for creators, right? Like I know you talk a lot about confidence and things that you can do, but how can creators apply the knowledge that you're sharing? like in terms of maybe confidence or living a softer life, or I guess like the topics that you really dive into. Yes, womanhood, but can maybe we have an open top dialogue about how do creators and influencers apply the strategies that you share on confidence to their everyday lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely like my biggest tip is you have to, when I think about being a content creator and how I see other people wanting to be an influencer, wanting to grow their audience and things, it comes from a good place, right? We feel like there's probably something that we could talk about and share, but we don't know if anyone's going to resonate with that. I think that you have to always be not, you don't have to always be aligned, because you might not know what really is your niche and what you're talking about, but go in the direction that feels the best to you when it comes to talking about a certain topic, because I feel like you will have the most confidence, even if you don't have a lot of confidence with like, or experience talking about that thing. It's like you can do no wrong by talking about something that you love, like truly.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. And so I think that is one thing. What was the other question in terms of?
No, it was mostly like just like self-care in general. Like I know you talk a lot about like it, just self-care tips for women, or like and that's the content that I think I was like watching and listening to. Just like self-care for creators, right? Is it turning off, or like boundaries, or what are some things that creators can kind of do to pause, to not kind of get wrapped up in this crazy energy of, oh my God, overproduce. And then which leads to burnout, which I also want to talk about. Like, how do we can get there, but self-care, any sort of like, because you're a creator, you do this a lot. You create a lot of content, right?
Yes.
So how do you, what are some self-care practices you practice for yourself to kind of keep you being able to produce as much as you do and as often as you do?
Well, I think I would probably take this a little deep here, and I had to have a few, I don't know, like realizations through my time of being a content creator, and realize like, okay, if I'm stressing myself out and telling myself like I need to create a bunch of content and grow my audience and all this kind of stuff, why am I so like in this like fight or flight space of having to do it? Like, why am I stressing myself out so much to do it? And I found a lot of my mindset around like becoming a content creator. I actually was like residing in a lot of like lack mentality, lack mindset. Like I need to make this many videos so I can grow and get all these opportunities so that I can make money and live. Because obviously there comes a point in time where you're making money off of social media as well. It's like, that's how you want to live, right? And I don't think that's a bad thing, but I feel like you have to like catch yourself when you're telling yourself that you have to produce and create and do all this kind of stuff. Like, where is this coming from? Because if it's coming from a place of lack, like you have to do it or else, and there's no other way, then you're going to start talking about things that might not be aligned. You're going to burn yourself out. Like you're going to stress yourself out. And I don't like, that's not helpful, especially when it comes to like feminine energy and soft life, things like that. So I think that's I guess the kind of like
you just have to kind of be self-aware of like, why am I getting into this spiral of, like, as you said, lack, right? Like, pause, self-aware, and then remind myself of the type of life I do want to live, which is a little bit more like slower paced, or not in this headspace of crazy, kind of like reminding yourself of that,
Yeah, because when I get in a spiral, usually it has to do with some type of lack mentality, limiting belief, think that I'm not doing enough or being enough, and not being patient maybe with certain things or goals that I'm trying to do. And once I realized that, I'm like, okay, you know what? Like none of this is that important. Like I need to step back for a moment. What's the most important thing is for you to be a creative and share things from a very clear mind, and depending on what you're talking about,
of course,
right. And I think that it's really hard. You're limiting yourself from doing that when you're in this like go mode all the time. And so when I catch myself in that type of mentality, I tell myself like, okay, I got to stop. Like right now I haven't posted on TikTok in I don't know, maybe like 5 days. And old me would be like, you're done, algorithm's going to hate you, like all that kind of stuff. But I'm sitting here like, I don't have anything valuable in my personal opinion to say right now. So I'm not going to force myself to do it. And that's not that it doesn't mean that I'm not going to grow and that I'm not, you know, gonna hit my goals or my dreams. It's just, I have to relax.
And it's because you look at it as a marathon, not a sprint. You're like, I'm going to keep going. Like, this ain't the week. Yeah, this week I don't have something and I need to pause. So yeah, absolutely. Like, you're seeing the big picture. So 5 days for you, it ain't no big deal because you've been doing this for so long and you're going to keep going. It's not like the reason you're stopping, you know? One thing I think that a lot of the creators in our community do face is burnout. They do get into that spiral where they're like, they would produce, they would like push themselves, and then they would collapse. And I know we've talked about on the channel, like just ways to, I think a lot of what you're talking about is preventative. Like, don't even get to that point. Like, being aware of, you know, that you're starting so that you can prevent it from actually happening. But there is a lot of creator burnout on the rise. And I think that people do push themselves. I think there's this concept of like watching your competitors, or I always say, like, what is it? Comparison is the thief of joy, because you can be so happy in what you do and then see someone else do better. And it just like screws you up. So I think like a big part of protecting burnout is for some of the people I know as well, it's just kind of not looking over the fence, not worrying about what others are doing. Cause that could trip you out. It doesn't trip me out, but it trips other people out. They start seeing how other people are. And we all know social media is just a highlight reel anyways. Right. But in terms of like, I guess, protecting your burnout, I think you're quite self-aware, but any other tips like for creators listening in? Again, I think you just said it. Like, you're like, I haven't posted in 5 days and no one's dying. So I think you're already in a good headspace already. Hopefully that can inspire someone. But if you had any other tips to prevent burnout, or if you have burned out, because I don't know, maybe you have, how you dealt with it and how you kind of got through. I'm not sure if you have.
Yeah, I would definitely say the thing that I try and focus on the most, and for any creator who's in that same position, is you got to bring your focus back to what's the most important thing and why you're doing this in the first place, especially when everything is so noisy and you see other creators. And I've gotten there too. Like I have to look and see who's doing what and what is everyone talking about too.
Totally.
And I just try and catch myself when I have these thoughts, when I'm scrolling through TikTok and I see this influencer is talking about this thing and oh my gosh, like whatever. I'm like, okay, that's their journey. I can talk about this when I'm ready. I don't need to talk about it right now. Like, another thing, right? When you go on social media and you see everyone talking about a million things, you're like, oh, let me write a list of all these things I have to do and I have to talk about them now or they're going to be irrelevant. But it's like, you actually don't need to do all that. It's insane and it's impossible and you shouldn't put that much stress on yourself. It's just not that deep. And yeah, for me with burnout, I don't work really a 9 to 5 like schedule life. So to say like, oh, shut off at like 5 o'clock, it might not be that realistic, especially for content creators, because we just have a lot of things to do. But you have to find time in your week and even in your days to just say no, because there's always going to be things to do. Right now, I'm actually doing your pitching to brands course. And I love it. It's amazing. And I just want to keep going, but I have to tell myself like, Elicia, you need to go to sleep. You have to do your self-care. You need to read, you have to take a bath. You have to do things that are going to help you show up as a creator in the first place. You remind yourself of that, because if not, then you're not actually the creator that you say that you are, when you're so immersed in all these ideas and things to do. Like, you need to live so that you can then talk about the things that you've gone through. And sometimes we shut ourselves off and we want to sit in a dark corner and just edit and create for months, but it's like, no, that doesn't make sense, you know?
Yeah, I love this. And I think what you're just really saying, and to take it out, is saying no, is being able to say no, because as a creator, entrepreneur, there will always be something to do. There'll always be a video to make, a video to edit, a YouTube to upload, a thing to do. There's always something. And I think slowly understanding that your checklist is not going to be finished by the end of the day, that it's going to roll over, and that, again, and when you're in it for the long haul, you're not thinking about things in such a micro way. You know that.
Yeah. And also, and one last thing about the burnout thing that helped me, even when I was growing my TikTok and I was posting 3 videos a day, I would batch film a lot of things. Now, I feel like there's definitely there's a fine line with batch filming, because depending on the type of creative you are, you might be intuitively like better just talking whenever you have a thought or something. And then it just like, I've had many viral moments just from one random thought and I turn on my camera. But when you have a busy life, especially with me, I still have another job. Like batch filming and creating definitely helps me. So like for YouTube videos, I'm filming like a few videos so that I can edit throughout the week. So not every single week I'm sitting down and filming. Same with the 3 videos with TikTok. Like I would batch film a bunch of them and then edit throughout the week. And then I would leave myself some room to just intuitively get on the mic if I wanted to, but at least I had that content because I'm looking at it as a business, right? Like I'm being consistent because I'm growing something. And same thing with even with YouTube shorts or just all the social media platforms, because we feel like we have to be on everything. You don't, but if you figure out what works for you, I repurpose a lot of my content. And I take my TikToks and I put them on YouTube shorts, things like that. So thinking about it that way as well, if you're looking at it as like a business, just becoming
which is what I want to talk about too. Like that fact that you're talking, I had that as a question, like walk us through your work week, walk us through your workflow. I know you mentioned that you do batch so that you can get ahead of yourself. I think it's also really amazing that you also have, like you said, you leave time for like this intuitive, like if you need to just jump on, you can, so that there is like kind of like natural, like non-script, like non-batch content available as well. That's something I really struggle with. Like I am the batch queen. Like I don't, yes. And sometimes I have thoughts and I'm like, oh, I would love to just jump on and do something. And I just don't. I have like a total block around that, like the impromptu, because my days are so like just kind of scheduled. Maybe I need to schedule, but it's hard to schedule in like impromptu creative time. Oh,
I know it really is. But I look at things in terms of like energy as well.
Yeah.
That is I think that's your feminine energy, right? That creative flowing. It's going to be messy. She doesn't have a schedule. She's really like popping in and out of the group chat whenever she wants. So you have to like honor her. And I feel like the more that I'm, going into womanhood and just, even just like learning about feminine energy, we all have feminine and masculine energy within us. But I think it's really important and something to not just completely shut off. It can definitely be hard, but that's that very masculine structure, right? Okay, I'm going to batch film these and this, that, and it's great, right? It builds a business, but within that, there's some gems that you're probably holding back when you say no, right? And I've been that the same way, and I've seen myself when I've actually let that gem out and where it's taken me. And so because I know that, I'm like, I have to let myself record if I want to on a day. And when you're asking me about like how's your week structured, things like that, again, like I think about things like a few months ahead, of course, some of the topics that are really popular that I want to talk about. And I will have like a YouTube, podcast, TikTok. Usually they're kind of around the same type of topics. I'm kind of talking about the same thing and repurposing things or making them smaller for TikTok type thing like that. But sometimes I'll have a huge list of topics that I want to talk about. And this one week, when I'm just feeling really, really intuitive, I'm like, actually, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm scratching all of that. And I'm talking about this thing today, and it works. And it does so much better. That. So it's hard. I get it can definitely be hard, but there's that feminine essence within you. You got to let it out.
Just like come out. Totally.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know. I personally get blocked because I'm like, oh, like, do I look cute? Like, did I, and then the time, like sometimes I get caught up in, like little edits or like putting the text on, and then I'm like, forget it. Like, the thought, like I don't fall, like, so I do think that there's something also important about giving yourself some space to be impromptu. Sure. So speaking of feminine energy and masculine energy, because this is something that maybe people don't in my community are like, wait, what? Like, they may not be interested or not interested. No, excuse me. They may not know about what that even looks like. What is like, I had a podcast interview actually recently with someone, and she was talking about how she splits up her days based on like feminine energy days and like masculine energy days. So for example, she's like, I can't like film, I don't know. She's like all the admin stuff or like the structured stuff, like, she's like, it's hard to bounce between like doing like creative flow and all that, and then go into like a crazy meeting. Or she was like, talking about separating them. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, I don't know, what does that look like for the creators? Like, what is like, I don't know, maybe just kind of very basics. People here may have no idea what that even looks like. So I kind of want to describe the differences between both in terms of like the creator workflow.
Yeah. So, well, first, feminine energy, it's very creative, very left brain centered. Just you don't have to be a woman to have feminine energy as well. Like, we have both energies within us. Yeah, but it's the creative fun side of us, really. And it's kind of hard to schedule it in our weeks, of course. And then the masculine, it's very structured, goal orientated, like getting things done, very linear. And that's kind of how, honestly, our whole society is built off of a lot of masculine energy, unfortunately, very unhealthy, wounded, and sometimes because it's that burnout, masculine energy
going
right. And so in terms of like your work week, there's a few ways you can do it, right? So that creator is saying, on one day, I'm letting myself just be free and watch things or write things down or wherever, I guess, her feminine energy wants to take her. And then she creates from that. There's so many different ways, right? And for me, I actually cycle sync. So I'm very in tune with my menstrual cycle. So I find that there's certain phases of my cycle that I'm more in my masculine, like I can get things done, like I'm ready to go, I'm ready to film a bunch of videos, ready to just like script everything out. And then there's weeks where I have like more low energy, where I'm menstruating and I'm more very like actually tapped into my intuition. And those days I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna focus on maybe being creative or editing or coming up with some new ideas or allowing my mind to go to places like watching really cool podcast episodes or documentaries that are going to spark some interest for me to then create something new. So it's definitely hard to say how you can incorporate more feminine energy or masculine within your life. You're gonna have to see what works for you. It can definitely be hard.
Just even being aware of what that is. You know what, I had a big realization the other day.
We love realizations.
I feel like I've never said this out loud. I feel like pitching to brands is like a masculine energy vibe, because you're like going for it. And like, and I think people who struggle, like I have a lot of creators who are afraid to pitch. They are afraid to reach out and be assertive and get on a call and send a proposal and ask for money and ask for a lot of money and not be afraid. And I'm like, is that like, I'm not like, is that part of that vibe?
Energy. Yes, that's 100%. It is. It totally is.
And some women come to me and they feel like maybe I like zone in on that because I'm able to channel or get into that space, and they like need help with that because maybe they don't have that assertive, like go for it, get on the call, ask for a lot, like no fear, like, you know, they're like,
yes,
I don't know. I had a total realization. I don't know if it makes any sense or not.
No, it does. It's that is completely, you're right on the ball with that. And also I personally think, and most people think who are really into like feminine, masculine energies, money is very masculine. It makes you like, what does money make you feel like? It makes you feel safe and contained and like everything is stable. And that's the essence of masculine energy. So it makes sense why I personally think a lot of women, they don't have the best relationship with their own masculine energy within themselves to be structured and goal orientated. I'm not saying all women, but some do. They struggle with that. But then also they don't have a very healthy relationship with masculine energy outside of them too. So whether that be in relationships or with money, a lot of women struggle with having a healthy relationship with money. That was me as well. And so the more I think pitching to brands is a really good, I mean, it's a really good course to take for content creators, of course, because it's helping them create more healthy masculine energy within their lives, which will then allow them to create the life that they're wanting to live anyways, right? Because that's what it's all about. Like we're making money doing what we love. That's amazing.
Yeah, so yeah, I was just like reflecting on that. I'm like, maybe there's something there, like being so people like will enter our course and be like, oh my God, like you'll reach out to a brand that you don't know and like asked to get on a call and like be so assertive. You're so bold. You're so, oh my God, I've been told that like so much. You're so assertive. You're so bold. You're so confident. Wow. Like, and I wonder if there's a space that it's because you're going for it versus it coming to you. I think there's no right or wrong. I'm sure there's both ways are great. We teach both ways, right? So
yeah, like feminine energy is it's all about receiving, and masculine is all about going forward. And
so it's like finding that balance too, as a creator.
100%, right? Yeah, you don't want to, and that's where we find ourselves in burnout and stress and just stuck a lot when we're kind of too much in one energy, in my personal opinion. That's why I talk about a lot on my content
I know,
as well.
I go through. Yeah, I'll watch your stuff. I remember, and I'm like, I want to live the soft life.
Yes,
or like I want to, or just like
life.
Thinking about stuff. And I think just like thinking about it in general, just being like, what are some boundaries we can set in our own life to kind of like help us not be in, I think what the beginning of today's conversation was that crazy spiral, right?
Well, yeah. And it's just honoring the fact that you have different parts of you, and you don't need to drive yourself into a wall and be in your masculine, or even if you want to take the energies out of it, just be in this one space at all times. Like, you have different parts of you that need to be nourished in other ways. And that might be pleasure, just enjoying life, being in the moment, not just always working. Like, it's not healthy. So even if you really want to like pitch to more brands, it's really healthy that maybe you chill out today for the rest of the day and do something with your family and friends, whatever.
And that's why we always talk about, when we talk about pitching, we're like, okay, what's your pitch date? Like, what day, get up, have your coffee, like do it all at once versus like, we are doing like a challenge right now where we're getting people to reach out and they're like, oh my God, I sent 5 pitches, 10 pitches, 30 pitches. And they do it all on the same day. So that like just collecting the emails or writing the pitches, doing it all at once. Cause it's kind of a helpful for flow and for getting it done. Before we wrap up, I have 2 more questions. One of them is to kind of go back into workflow and like, I know we talked a lot about like getting organized and batching. You talked about repurposing. Are you currently are you doing that all for yourself? Do you have help, or is it just, are you doing everything right now?
I'm doing everything.
You're doing everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of your TikTok, like, will you have just overall weekly goals? Like, okay, I want to shoot these videos, and then I'm going to repurpose them schedule them to YouTube for YouTube Shorts. I want to do you kind of set goals for yourself weekly versus daily, just for workflow? Because I do think a lot of creators do get stuck in from planning to executing. Like I'm like, just post. It doesn't matter if it's once a week or twice a week. But in terms of like workflow outside of batching, do you have like just kind of goals, or how do you make sure that you're moving the needle forward? Because I was just on your YouTube this morning and I'm like, oh wow, she has like all her shorts up, or she's doing more long form, or like how are you finding yourself getting there?
So it definitely changes depending on what I'm working towards. Like right now I'm really focused on growing my YouTube channel. So it's every Monday I'm posting a video, and I'm trying to post every day on shorts, but I'm only doing that because I have so much content on my TikTok. But
you're going back into TikTok land and pulling older videos.
Yeah.
That's what I did too.
Yeah. And it's so smart. Like, even if you think it's like not relevant, you could even repost it back onto your TikTok. You should do that all the time as well. And it would still go viral because other new people are seeing it every single day. But yeah, I would say like weekly goals for sure are to, right now with TikTok, I don't really have a weekly goal for TikTok other than I need to show up at least maybe a few times out of the week. But I'm struggling with that because it's important to me that I talk about things that are really like resonating and what everyone needs to hear at that point. So it's very feminine right now, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, with YouTube, usually again, it's like honestly more monthly, where I'm thinking about, okay, 3 to 4 main videos that I want to make sure that are filmed and have those scripted. Like usually I script majority of them at that moment. And then I'm picking like 1 or 2 days out of that next week where I'm going to sit and film. And then
Same.
throughout the month, I'm editing and I'm making sure like I have space in my week at the beginnings of the week. Same thing with my podcast.
I was going to say, so how does a podcast fit into this big picture? Are you like, oh, like I'm looking for interview guests? Are you talking on your own? Or like, how do you insert the podcast into this schedule?
Yeah. So right now I've been trying to bring more podcast guests on, but that's a very new thing for my podcast. So usually
it was just you talking, correct? Like
yeah, it was just me talking. So usually by, let's say on a Monday, I'm thinking about next week's content, like what I need to get done for the next week to have everything ready to go. So like this week I'll be recording for next week type thing for really whatever I need. And I've been doing it on a weekly basis because I do think that the podcast is quite easy just to kind of record and put up. But sometimes I will batch create maybe 1 or 2 episodes. And when I'm feeling like there's not much to talk about necessarily, like there's nothing really on my mind that a specific topic, I'll do a Q&A. So I'll go onto my Instagram. I'll ask people, what advice do you need right now? Or what questions do you have? And just one question could give me a whole entire podcast episode.
I love that.
Yeah. So sometimes when I'm feeling like there's any creative blocks, I'm like, go back to your community. Like there's so many questions that you can be answering that would create a million videos for you.
Have you found that your TikTok community has like, how do you transfer them to your Instagram? Or does TikTok let you do stuff like polls and Q&As and stories? I don't think so.
No.
Like I struggle with TikTok stories. Like I'm like never on there. I'm like, cause they don't have like that same functionality yet, like poll or Q&A, or do they? I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't remember. But I wonder like, how are you transferring your TikTok people to your Instagram? Or maybe you're not, they're just kind of seeing your Instagram, like little handle there. And
yeah, I've tried to do like call to actions and things of that nature on TikTok, but it's hard because TikTok, they pick up one thing you say, like link in bio or go follow me on this platform, and they just don't push it because they don't want anyone off the app. Yeah, it is true. And even in the comment section, when you say, oh, I have a new video, or go to my Instagram to follow me, it literally will not show up on other people's.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it will not. It's insane.
Yeah,
so
our team told us that, and I was like, really? They're like, say it's in your profile, like check my profile or something.
Yeah, you have to be very careful with that. So for me personally, I'm all about living the soft life and just like living life with no resistance to things. So if that platform is not going to allow me to do that, I'm just not pushing it too much. Yeah. But obviously like I have everything connected. So what I do usually is on my podcast, I always tell people to talk to me on my Instagram. Like that's really where a lot of my podcast listeners are. And with YouTube, obviously like I'm saying it in the captions and stuff, but I find that the people who really want to follow you on every platform they'll find you as long as you have those links.
It's so true, guys. Like it is so true. Like yes, that's just money right there, because they will find you. I know my YouTube people, the one who really care, they're going to find me on the other things, you know?
Yeah, because you have to think about how you are, right? As a user or content consumer. I've been a consumer for so long too. So it's like, if I'm really interested in somebody, I am going to Google and typing up everything that they have, and I'm following everything, and I'm learning about their whole entire life. Like I need to know everything. So if I give that impact to somebody, like they're going to find me. It's really not that deep as long as you have all your links and everything set up. But yeah, I don't focus too much on that. But one thing, I grew up my audience a lot too. Well, more just deeper connections was TikTok lives last winter.
Oh, do you do them?
I haven't done them literally all this year, really, because I've been so busy, but I do want to start doing it again.
Same.
Because people still comment on my TikToks being like, I remember when you had lives like last year and it changed my life type. Just people love that, especially in the winter. I think that's a good way to really connect with your community, because people are bored. Like they want to feel inspired. They want to, whatever you're talking about, right? They want to hear it. So that's definitely good. And I would just go on whenever.
Yeah. I'm like, guys, we all need to do more TikTok lives. That was actually 100%. A challenge idea I had for our community. We have a membership community with creators, and I try to always like get people to have fire under their butts, and different reels challenge or this challenge. but I feel like a live challenge is good because it's almost like, let's go live. Like, even if it's just once a week or whatever, like sometimes I'm literally at my office, like desk, and I have this little thing and I'm like, I just want to like go live and like work and talk. But I'm like, oh no, like I stop, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, no, it's so fun though. And I see that's the feminine energy right there that
Yes,
just
it
wants to just come out.
And then my masculine side is like, no,
no,
you don't have time. Like, you need to move on. You have a big to-do list.
Yes. And
but
and
that live could probably get like so many more people excited about
Yes.
my like program and see me and like all the things,
and like, and those are going to be your most loyal audience, like members. Honestly, I have some of the most loyal people who are watching me from those lives because they just feel so connected to me. And honestly, we feel like it's just this big thing. It's so new. It's so hard, but actually it's quite easy. Like, if you
all you have
just
to
allow
do is
yourself,
hit, like, start.
And that's what feminine energy is like. Feminine energy is so easy when you actually drop into it. It's not about work, it's actually about fun and play. And when you go on live, people are asking you questions and that's your content. You don't need to come up with all these ideas and you need to work and script out things. None of it. It's just sit back and have fun. Like, that's what your feminine energy is all about. So drop into it more.
In my head, because next time I'm going to want to go live and then something tells me not to, I'm just going to make space for it and just like,
let it be.
And I think you said something earlier that kind of gave me like a visual. You're like, let the gem come out. It's almost like the diamond that needs to be like pressurized. Like, let it just come out. Instead of like holding back,
And you never know. I had this one viral video that I made in like beginning of my early stages of TikTok. And I said, you literally have no idea where you will end up if you just keep going. And I didn't even know then what that meant for myself. And now just looking back at my own story, I'm like, wow, like I knew I was true then, but like that is so true now with all the opportunities and things that I'm doing in my life, just keep going and just doing. You don't even need to know where it's going to lead you.
Totally. And I think that's it. Like, stop trying to know where it's going to lead you or rush the process. Because I think that's like, maybe that's part of us. That's like the controlling nature of like wanting to know and like, where is it going to go? And kind of like, let it be.
Yeah. And on one hand, you want to honor the part of you that is needing to know, like the masculine, the ego, the whatever you want to call it, that part of you that's trying to protect you and make sure that things are in line and we're making money and we're growing and we're on purpose and whatever. And that's great. We can honor that part of us, but we have to look at ourselves like there's so many different pieces to our own puzzle and we have to honor different parts of us. And when you actually do that, even though you feel a lot of resistance, once you welcome all parts of you, you're going to come up with some creative ideas. You're going to go to places you don't even know. Right.
Yeah.
All of that. So you have to follow
that word resistance. I feel like it's so true because you keep thinking about like, I don't know, just little things, like everything's kind of like an energy transmission too. And just like, do you just want to be in a space of resistance and like fighting or pushing, or just kind of find a different path,
Yes.
Well, this has been so cool and inspiring. Thank you. I feel like it's been a good mix of talking about, different energies, but also a lot of like practical advice and a lot of like workflow and how to get it done. But I think I am going to leave today's conversation with a little bit more, just less resistance, like just letting it happen, and
you have to. Yes. Yeah. You just let things flow. Like, you don't need to make everything, like stressful, and it can be very stressful being a content creator and you're building a business, and just like remind yourself at the end of the day, like, actually this can be fun if I allow it to. So just let it be. And not having these crazy like expectations too. It's like the balance. And it's interesting finding like what motivates you. And so, sometimes I have to ask myself, like, is stress like a motivator for me? Like, if I'm not stressed, am I okay? And we always talk about, I'm like, I don't want to be stressed vibes, like, No.
But I also want, our company to move forward. So it's like this constant balance of having the heat to produce, but also learning how to walk the line so you're not overwhelmed or
Yes.
burning out, because we want
Yes.
enough heat but not too
Yes.
much, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
cooking.
yeah.
It's like a cooking
Yes.
recipe.
Not too much heat. Not too much heat. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Elicia. This has been amazing. Let everyone know
Yeah,
where
you're
they can
welcome.
find you, how they can get in contact. I will put all the links and stuff in the notes below, but if you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
just
for
let us
sure.
know.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and my podcast. Everything is the Glow Up Secrets. And you can DM me, ask me any questions that you want on Instagram, anywhere really. And yeah,
I love that. The
I'm always
glow up
online
secrets.
somewhere. Yeah, the
So
Glow Up
good.
Secrets.
It's so good. And I love that it's all like you were able to kind of, I know at least with your podcast, and it's like so easy to find you because once you put it in, it's there for everyone.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I love it.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And we'll be in touch
Yeah.
soon.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.